Hi, I'm Woody Huffines. I own the Nerds to Go in McKinney and Frisco, Texas, and this is Tech for the Untechnical. All this Zoom meeting and video conferencing meeting thing has some technical things that go along with it. What are they? Okay, so this technical world is changing all the time, and you've got more and more technology that comes into your mind. My new friend from social media space, Sophie, told me I need to be on TikTok, and I don't know, maybe there's an age limit on TikTok and I'm beyond it, so I haven't thought about that yet. But we've got TikTok and we've got Facebook and we've got, well, they're legion. There's a million of them. And we keep running into things that we have to use now in a business perspective that we weren't used to using, like video meetings and Zoom and Google Hangouts and WebExes and all these things where we're now running meetings on a regular basis from the comfort of our own home, which is pretty good. With all this video conferencing going on now, there's a new piece of technology in our life that we may or may not be used to, and there's some things that you need to do to understand to do it in a professional way that you haven't thought about before. In the same way that we had to learn how to use email and we had to learn how to use text messaging and we had to learn how to be careful on Facebook. Well, now we've got a new one, and that new one is video conferencing. How do you do the video conferencing so that you can look professional and be your best? Well, here's some ideas. First one's pretty simple. Ladies, put on some makeup. Gentlemen, comb your hair. Wear a shirt. Don't wear a hat. Be your professional self when you start that meeting up. And it's really not a technical clue, but as I've spent some time on meetings lately in the video meeting space, there's some people that I would have thought better of that aren't necessarily doing the things that they need to do to look professional. So the first one's pretty simple. Comb your hair, look good before you show up. The second thing that you need to do to look professional and to make your time in a video meeting as good as it can is pay attention to lighting. Now, from a photography standpoint, and that's what I do for fun, is photography. Here, I'll throw a couple of images in for some of my favorites just because I've got the opportunity. There was a guy that taught me a lot about photography, and one of the things that he taught me is that every picture that you take, and it doesn't matter if it's a video camera or a still camera or your cell phone, what you're doing is recording light. So the most important thing that you can do to look better in these video meetings or these online conferences is to pay attention to your lighting. How many of these video conferences have you been on where somebody's sitting at their desk and they're looking at their laptop and they've got a great big window behind them, so they look like a shadow silhouette and you really can't see their face and it doesn't look real good? That's because dynamic range on video cameras or webcams is not very good. So if you have a bunch of variability in the light that it's trying to capture, it doesn't capture it well. And it will usually expose for the brightest light as opposed to the darkest light. So the first thing you need to pay attention to is your lighting. Now, the very best choice for lighting is to face a window. In other words, instead of having the window behind you in your video conference, have the window in front of you so that you have a nice even light lighting you so that you're lit well. Because the other thing about these webcams is that they're not real good at dark images. So the darker you are, the more pixelated or the lower quality the image will be. So lighting is number one. How do you set up to get the lighting done? Now, in a previous video, link up here, I talked about before you get on a web conference, find a friend, send them an invitation, and the two of you play with it. Carry your laptop around. See where the best place is to get the lighting that you want to make you look your best. Because at the end of the day, even though it's a new technical challenge, it's a challenge about how we present ourselves professionally using the technology that's available to us. So number one is lighting. Spend some time paying attention to your lighting. And it can be just as simple as getting a small light and putting it next to your computer if you have a desktop so that you are well lit and that you look good on camera. The second thing to pay attention to is your background. Now, since I shoot videos for YouTube, I've got a background that I set up. It's kind of like a studio, and I've got lighting set up. I've got a light over here to kind of fill light, and I got a light up here to minimize the amount of wrinkles in my old beagle face. But when you sit down to do a video conference, and again, hook up with one of your friends and test it and see what it looks like. Because you don't want to get on a video conference, especially if it's an important one, and you show up and you look bad because you don't have the opportunity to fix the problem at that moment. Right? Take some time, look at it first. And the first thing you need to pay attention to is lighting, which we just discussed. The second thing is your background. A simple background is better. A background that's a little bit darker than you are is also very good. And then the complexity of the background. A lot of the video conferencing software has something you can drop into the background, and you can drop in, a beach scene or your logo or something like that. But the camera in real time is spending time cutting you out of that background. Since we've all been on a lot of conference calls, video conference calls lately, you've seen that guy that's got the really pretty background, and every time he moves, it creates little artifacts around the edges, or his shirt becomes transparent and it looks like the beach is on his shirt and things like that. So while you can use those insertable backgrounds to put up your logo or put something else, the best thing to do is to find a simple background, maybe something with a little visual interest instead of a blank wall, but a blank wall is better than the stuff that's in the background that might cause you a problem. And what do I mean by might cause you a problem? Well, this is Texas, and if you're a UT grad and you get into a video conference with somebody that's got a big Texas A&M sign behind him, you might think he's a dirtbag just because he went to Texas A&M. Maybe not. I'm just saying. Pay attention to the things that are in your background so that you're projecting the image that you want to project, because the background is something that you control. Now, technically, that means getting your webcam set up or getting your camera set up and testing it out to see what your background looks like so that you can project a professional image by using the technical distance things on your computer or your webcam to make sure that you're presenting the image that you want with your background. And that background is another technical piece. How do you position yourself to get you the background that you want to project the image that you want to project? The next technical issue that you face is called perspective. These webcams are generally wide-angle lenses, and a wide-angle lens makes you look like a beagle if you're too close to the lens, because a wide-angle lens changes the aspect ratio, or it changes, not the aspect ratio, the depth of field. So your nose gets really big and your ears get really small, and I'll take a picture and drop it in here so that you can see the worst-case scenario. So again, spend some time with your camera offline before you get there to see what it looks like. Now, Logitech webcams are very good about giving you a preview so that you can see what distance looks best and how you frame that background. It's a technical issue, but it's not an overwhelming challenge. It just takes a little bit of time. So you want to make sure that the wide angle doesn't distort your face or make you look bad because of the wide angle lens. The second piece of that is the lens height. For example, when I shoot these videos, basically the center of the lens is about at eye level. The problem with most laptops is that the webcam sits at the top of the screen, and people, as a rule, put their webcam or their laptop on their desk and they angle the screen up so they can look at it, and you're getting a really attractive up the nose shot from your webcam. So pay attention to the perspective of the camera, and maybe it's just as simple as putting a stack of books on your desk and putting the camera level of the webcam at about eye level. And then just raise your laptop up so that the eye level perspective is the one that you want. You don't necessarily want it coming down at you, but you certainly don't want it coming up. It's just not attractive. Most phones now, if you try to take a picture of yourself, it'll tell you on the phone, raise the level of the camera for a better angle. Same thing's true of a webcam. So you want to project that professional image, and paying attention to the perspective. How close you are to that camera and what the camera height is compared to your eye level is important. One of the things that you see when you go on these video conferences, and it's just another little tip, is you see people looking at their screen while they're talking. So they're watching themselves talk, and the angle of the camera is pointing at them, but their eyes are going someplace else, or their eyes are going down, or their eyes are going over to the side. It's not as effective for communication because we're used to, as humans, looking at each other's eyes. So when you speak in a meeting, when you speak at a time, be cognizant of where that camera is, so that when you actually speak, you're looking at the camera, and when someone else is speaking, look at them. And it's just an engagement thing. It's an eye level thing. It's a way to adapt to the new technology that's become important in our lives. The last technical issue that you need to pay attention to project a professional image is the sound. Now, there's a bunch of different ways that you can deal with sound. One of the best, in my opinion, is a headset. They're not that expensive. It's a USB headset. You put it on, and it's got a boom microphone so that the microphone is close. It's not catching a lot of ambient sound in your environment. And more importantly, since you have headphones on, you know what you sound like. Because it's pretty easy for your webcam to be catching the tick, 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 tick of your ceiling fan, and you don't know that it's catching the tick, 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 tick of your ceiling fan because you're not hearing the sound that you're putting out. Headphones with a boom microphone are a really good way to solve that. The other thing that you can consider is buying another external microphone. The Blue Yeti microphones are awesome, and for $59 you can buy what's called a Snowball. If you put that on your desk, your sound will be a lot better. If you look at your laptop, for example, up at the top where the webcam is, right next to it there's a little dot, there's a little hole, and that's the microphone. That microphone doesn't capture sound very well. How many of these calls have you been on where someone sounds like they're in a tunnel, or you can hear their next door neighbor mowing the grass, or all these things? So sound is another technical aspect of having these conference calls that's important. And the more attention you pay to these technical aspects, the more professional you will come across as you do these things. Now, sidebar, I think one of the things that we're going to find going forward after we get out of the COVID-19 excitement is a lot of people are going to find out that webcam and video conferencing is a way to accomplish a lot of work that they didn't think they would accomplish. While the face-to-face is still important, and while I value the face-to-face, the amount of meetings, the amount of contacts that you can have during a day when you're not traveling from one meeting to another, we found that this might be a way that going forward is going to be popular. So the better you are at doing webcams and the more information you have about the technical aspects of doing this that make you more professional and give you a better chance of using it for business or even using it to talk to your grandma. If you spend some time doing those technical things, even though you might be untechnical, they'll help you at the end. It'll make it more pleasant. It'll make it more pleasant for you and make it more pleasant for the people you're communicating with. I'm Woody Huffines. I own the Nerds to Go in McKinney and Frisco, Texas. This has been Tech for the Untechnical. If you find this information helpful, hit the subscribe button below, mash the notification bell so you get a notification when we put one out. Hit the like button, let me know I'm doing a good job. Put some comments in for some things that you would want to see us talk about in the future. And while we're in the middle of this crisis, be safe out there.